Hello, my name is Paul Priestley. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Paul Priestley Art. Now today we're going to be looking at the third in my series on how to draw simple objects, and we're going to be looking at drawing a tulip. Yes, a simple tulip. We're going to be looking for the tone and the line particularly, and also edges. It's exciting stuff, so come on. Okay, we've got the tulip here. Now, the first thing we need to do is to look for the shapes. You see how the petals look like triangular shapes. You've got triangles and curves. Notice how they relate to each other. Notice how big they are in relation to each other. This is what you've got to be looked for. Also, if you look at those tiny little lines on the petals, you see how they define the curves, and the lines go in lots of different directions. Again, you've got to get the direction right if you're going to make it work. Okay, let's move the drawing aside, the tulip aside. Here's the pencils I'm going to use, a 2B pencil, 4B, 8B. Remember, graphite, it's exactly the same as a pencil lead. That's what a pencil lead is, it's graphite. Okay, let's make a start with a drawing. Now, I'm going to draw those basic shapes. I'm drawing them very lightly with my 2B pencil. You see what I'm doing here. Now, as I'm drawing this, I am thinking about relating shapes to each other, looking at the shapes and seeing how they relate to each other, checking the proportions. Is this one the right size compared to that one? All of this can be done at this stage when, by drawing things very lightly, you are checking things over. You can always make changes to it, you see. If you draw things too hard to start with, you've got to start rubbing it all out, whereas here we can just sketch it in very, very lightly with the pencil. So you can see I'm just looking for those basic shapes, looking at how tall those curves are in relation to the triangles on the side, such like. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to look at the basic shapes, no detail. We don't want any detail at this side, so don't start drawing all the intricate little marks at the edge of the petals. We don't need that. What you need to do is get the basic shapes done so that you can now look at those basic shapes and check them out. I'm drawing the stem here now, and you can work from there. I'm going to suggest a few of the little lines, put in a little bit more information in terms of the shapes that I'm looking for. But I want to sketch those lines in so that when I do the shading later on, the shading can follow those lines. Now, if you notice here, I'm just suggesting a little bit more detail on the edges, just refining those shapes a little bit, just to get a little bit of the detail, but leave some of the initial lines in there, because it's always good when you look at a drawing to see the initial drawing, the initial lines, and they may still be there. It makes the whole drawing look as though it's been drawn by a human being and doesn't look like a manufactured photograph. It's a little bugbear of mine, but I cannot understand why people want to try to make drawings look like photographs, because they just look like everybody else's drawings. Where's the individuality in that? Never mind, let's get back to this. Now, graphite. When you use the graphite, press hard on one edge and less so on the other edge. That way you can create these nice edges which are sharp one side and soft the other side. This is ideal when we are drawing the tulip and creating the petals, because you'll notice the petals stand out because you get a light edge next to a dark shadow, and you can do this ideally with graphite. Notice here I'm doing the same thing, pressing hard on one side, lightly on the other side, and I get that very sharp edge and the soft edge, and you see how it now defines that triangular sort of petal to the left hand side. Now you can swap your paper around. I can't do that because I've got it all fixed underneath my camera, so I'm having to use my left hand here, which is interesting, but there we go. Do a little bit of shading here now. I'm just doing that shadow in there. I'm just pressing on a little hard with my graphite, as you can see. Now, the rest of this drawing is basically about creating edges, not outlines. We've got outlines drawn to give us the guide, but we want to get rid of those outlines and create edges, because the edges look so much more effective. You see, if you look at the petal, look at that very light edge. That light edge stands out because it's against a darker shadow behind it. So creating an edge rather than an outline makes it work. Because if you have lots and lots of outlines, they all look as though they're on the same level. But by varying and creating edges, you can create more depth to your drawing. Okay, you'll notice I've swapped back to my left hand again, and this time I'm just pressing on really hard right on the edge, so there's very little shadow there. I can go back over that and work on it now. Now, the other thing that you need to be aware of with graphite, this is 8B graphite that I'm using, but you'll notice that I can get some very light tones with it just by varying the pressure. You'll also notice here that by creating less sharp outlines, I can get those subtle folds that we've got in this particular petal here. Do you see how it's working just below my hand? Those very soft and subtle shapes. Now, you must make sure that all the edges that you draw on here, some of them are going to be very sharp and therefore will stand out. Others are going to be much softer and more subtle. So the drawing is as much about drawing as it is about looking. You really have to look in detail. Forget the fact that you're looking at a tulip. This is not a tulip anymore. This is a series of shapes, lines, edges, tones. This is what you're looking at, and this is what you have got to try to get into your drawing and onto the paper so that your drawing looks like a real three-dimensional drawing. But you don't want it to look like a photograph because it's you that's drawn it. Remember, people will pay millions to buy a Van Gogh drawing, but why would they do that if it looked like everybody else's drawing? They'd buy it because it looks like a Van Gogh drawing. That's what you've got to do. Anyway, we're digressing again. Okay, back to our drawing. Notice now the shading. Can you see it's following those lines that I drew earlier on? It's only very subtle, but it does help, and we'll come to do the lines shortly. Okay, you'll notice here now I'm beginning to work on the bottom part here, but the stem at the moment is quite light. Once I start making the stem very dark, you'll notice how it suddenly moves underneath the tulip. It makes it look much more three-dimensional. Now this is a good trick. You've probably used it before, but use a blank piece of paper. If you're drawing over a very detailed drawing like this one with lots of graphite on it, or a charcoal drawing, anything like that, bit of blank paper so you're not rubbing your hand all over it. Notice I'm putting some of those subtle lines in now, gradually trying to follow the shape and angle of the lines that I drew on earlier, and that way then it's beginning to suggest the curve of each one of these petals, and that's really important. You want to do that. Now at this stage with the pencil, this is my 4B pencil, you can see that I'm tidying up some of the edges, I'm tidying up some of the shadows, strengthening some of the shadows here and there, putting a little bit more detail on the edges, all of those sort of things, as well as putting in those lines. Now notice the lines I'm drawing here over that light area. I'm drawing them very lightly. I'm pressing on very, very lightly with my pencil. Here I'm pressing on a little bit harder. It's that subtlety of mark that you make that's going to make your drawing look individual. And that's what you want. You want your drawing to look individual. So what you've got to remember with drawings is that you are creating something on a flat surface. You are suggesting what this thing is. The person who looks at it, their brain is going to associate all those shapes, patterns, lines, tones, textures, etc. together and create the image. You, as the artist, are suggesting the image to them. So therefore the drawing becomes a combination of the artist and the viewer working together to create the image. That's what it's all about. You can't do that with a photograph because it's all there. There's nothing left for the viewer to do. Do you see the idea? So I'm putting on a few final lines now, little final details, maybe strengthen the tone here and there, I'm looking very carefully to see those basic shapes, maybe strengthen this area down here. That's looking better. Okay, a little bit more shadow down here as well, just to finish off. Okay, now I hope that you've managed to follow all this, and I hope that your drawing is looking spectacular, because remember, there's nobody in the world draws and paints like you do. Thank you for watching. I hope you really enjoyed working out how to draw a tulip. If you have, then please subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click the little black bell as well, so that we can keep in touch. That'll be brilliant. The other thing is, if you'd like to support the making of these videos, then please check out my Patreon channel, where you can find lots of interesting rewards in return for your patronage. That would be wonderful. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!